Thank you very much for being with me today. I have Battalion Chief Markham Meacham. Markham is one of my deputies. Meacham is, and I've actually got Meachams that are deputies too. He's with us today, and we are going to explain to you about a significant case that occurred, and then I'm going to follow that up with another case that is just as senseless but not certainly as violent or as dangerous. Let me introduce you to Marcia Forster. Marcia Forster is 36 years old. Marcia Forster decided that for a couple of days she'd use some cocaine. She picked up two small children. She drove to the Circle K right down the street here at 540 and Spirit Lake Road. She left the two children, 2 and 3 years of age, in the vehicle alone. She went into the store and she snorted cocaine. Now understand, she's been on about a 2-day binge. This is not the first time she snorted cocaine. And did I tell you she was 38 weeks pregnant with a little boy? She come back, she got into the vehicle, she drove across the parking lot to Publix, and there she passed out. She passed out. It's during the daytime, the engine's running, there's no air conditioning, and fortunately a passerby sees this lady nodded over the wheel, and she finds our Battalion Chief Meacham. I'm going to let him give you the details of the heroic life-saving efforts that he did, and as a result of his heroic actions, today there are 4 people alive that certainly would have suffocated in the heat within just a few minutes had he not become involved, and had we not had good Samaritans in the community to see him as he came from the public supermarkets and flag him down. I'll let him give you the details. But let me get back to Marcia Forster. Marcia Forster is a CNA. They call them certified nursing assistants for consulate health care. Now, don't you know you want somebody who actively snorts cocaine to be your CNA? But I've determined she is a CNA FM. She's certainly not a person that's fit to be a mother. She's certainly not fit to be a mother. She was rushed to the hospital at the conclusion of the heroic life-saving efforts, where there was an emergency C-section to save the 38-week infant. We estimate the temperature was 90 degrees in the parking lot and 99 degrees in the car where the children were locked inside. She confessed to our detectives. She said, you know, I've been using cocaine for a couple of days, and interestingly enough, it didn't have this ill effect on me, but this last buy of cocaine affected me a lot worse. Was it bad cocaine or was it more powerful cocaine? But at the end of the day, she almost killed 3 children that were in her custody. Before we go on with our other story, though, I want you to meet and hear from the gentleman that's responsible for saving Marcia Forster's life and the 3 children that was in her custody at the time. Tell them all about it.
So the morning of Monday, which was, I believe, the 9th or the 8th, the day started out pretty crazy with multiple overdoses in the area. During that time, I made sure that we had what we carry for opioid overdoses, Narcan. Made sure that I did have that in my battalion's vehicle. Just happened to be at the right place, right time. Publix, as I'm walking out, stopped for a quick lunch. It's been a busy day. As I'm walking out, I'm waved down by a bagger from Publix, and he said that a bystander had stopped him, noticing that there was a unresponsive or female slumped over at the wheel, and if I could check on her. So of course, absolutely, point me in that direction. Went over there to the passenger window, noticed two small children that looked like they're in obvious distress, sweating profusely, crying, very upset. And I did notice an unresponsive female in the driver's seat. So as I ran back to my truck, gathered my medical equipment, radioed for assistance, sheriff's office, as well as an additional engine and rescue from the fire department. Made contact with the woman that was unresponsive. Bystander initially came up to me, asked me if there's anything he could do to help. I directed him to immediately pull the children from the car and put the kids in his vehicle in order to cool them down, because obviously I saw that the AC was not on in the vehicle. Once the kids were taken care of, I started my assessment of the unresponsive female. Saw that there were signs of possible overdose, opioids. Knew that I had some medication in my vehicle that I didn't typically carry. Just happened, just the way the day had started, happened to put it in my vehicle. Trying to be a little proactive. Ran back to my truck, grabbed the Narcan, administered it to the patient, and within probably 3 minutes, she became responsive, and she was pretty unhappy with us, not knowing what was going on. We followed up with the children. My rescue crew got there, we transferred patient care to them, and they ultimately transported her to the hospital. And then at which time we tended to the children more. Luckily, they seemed to be okay once they had cooled down, but it was a very scary situation. Just again, right time, right place. The citizen that noticed this being very tentative, we really appreciated that as well. So without him seeing that and knowing that there was something wrong and letting somebody know, and then me being there when I was, this thing could obviously went a lot different.
When you say she was not happy with you, did she say anything to you? Was she combative?
At the time, she was a little combative, obviously not knowing what was going on, sure. Which is somewhat common when this drug is administered.
I know you probably go into rescue mode.
Yes, sir.
Any kind of urgency like this, but kind of describe us, what was going through your mind when you realized how dangerous this situation was?
So when we get toned out to calls, obviously we have a little time to prepare. So when we do stumble upon these calls, it's a little different, because you go from that 0 to 100 immediately, and then instincts just kick in. I saw that she wasn't breathing adequately. A few more minutes, and she might have passed away along with the unborn child. And I knew that I needed to act quick. So luckily, with the training, me being a paramedic, seeing, recognizing what needed to be done, doing an appropriate assessment, and then having the equipment that I needed to get things done.
And you said you just happened to put Narcan in your truck?
Correct. Yeah. So we had a few incidents early in the morning where there were some narcotic-related calls that we had run, and I saw it fit to do so because I didn't know how busy our ambulances were going to be. So it was just one of those weird coincidental things that just happened. So fortunately for myself and for the victims as well, that move was made.
Did you say the doors were unlocked?
The passenger door was locked when I was trying to get in there, and then whenever I left to go grab my medical equipment, I actually went to the driver's side knowing that that's where I needed to be, and fortunately that was unlocked, so there was no forcible entry that needed to be made.
Windows up too?
Windows were up.
Did you feel the heat at all, or
Absolutely.
what did it feel like?
It's hot, very, very hot. Like the sheriff said, it was, I would assume to say that 100 degrees or more was probably what it was in that car.
What do you think would have happened if you weren't there? How long
It would have been
in that car?
it would have been a very tragic accident.
Any idea how long they were in there before you were able to?
We don't. We're the bystander that actually said that he saw her unresponsive in the car before he walked in the store. Was in the store for about 30 minutes, then came out, and then obviously noticed something was wrong. He said that he thought that she was playing with the children that were in the car initially. So when he came out and realized, at that point he realized that something was probably wrong.
So at least 30 minutes.
I would say safe to say yes.
Can you tell us how old the kids were?
2 and 3.
2 and young children.
When you administer Narcan, I understand you're not a doctor or anything, but any impact that it would have on a pregnant person?
No, that drug, that medication is safe. There really is no other effects other than to reverse what the opioids are doing to your system.
And then Sheriff Judd, I don't know if you want to just talk about how the baby's doing.
The baby is in an extensively critical condition. Very, very critical condition. The baby needs our prayers, and we certainly hope that he recovers. But the condition is grave. As they said, it told us very critical and stable, but grave condition. But here's what I want to tell you. You've heard how our bat chief once again saved the lives of 4 people. And over we continue to hear about this nonviolent, low-level drug offenses. Tell me what's not violent about a woman snorting cocaine, passing out. She's 38 weeks pregnant and has a 2- and 3-year-old in the car, and in a few more minutes, all of them would have been dead. All of them. Now, what's not violent about that? Why should someone who buys, sells, snorts, uses cocaine, and neglects children like this not be fully held accountable? I'm always amazed at the people that stand up and get the face time about this is really not violent, it's low level, we're overreacting as a society. If it hadn't been for a bag boy, a good citizen, and a bat chief, we would have had this lady kill herself and 3 children, and 1 may die yet. And if that baby dies, we're going to seek murder charges against her. She has a previous felony record.
Sheriff, is enough being done to treat addiction in the county?
Addiction begins when you take illegal drugs. You have to first be responsible for yourself, and you have to be accountable. And certainly we as society owe the community the opportunity to receive drug treatment. I believe drug treatment is best accepted from a lockup, where I can make sure you're sober, I can make sure that you go to your counseling sessions, I can make sure you take your medicine, and then earn your way back out. But California, for example, has made possession of marijuana a misdemeanor. Okay. Possession of heroin a misdemeanor. Possession of methamphetamine a misdemeanor. Possession of cocaine a misdemeanor. You don't even go to jail. You don't even go to jail because, it's this low-level, nonviolent event. Well, this was not a low-level, nonviolent event. Marcia Forster almost killed herself and 2 children, 2 and 3, and only with God's grace and mercy will she not have killed this child, this 38-week-old infant.
Sheriff, so I know that you guys have, that's really the state has tried to tackle fentanyl, and it seems to me we've seen a rise in cocaine cases in our state. Are you seeing a rise of cocaine use in this area?
I have said this, hundreds of times in the past. There is a market for illegal drugs. When we push the cocaine market down, the meth market goes up. When we push the meth market down, the cocaine market goes up. When the pharmaceutical industry introduced the opioids and we had the opioid rush, when we got a handle on the pain clinics and all that other nonsense that was going on, they turned to street heroin. And then they started lacing it with fentanyl. None of that is a low-level, nonviolent event. None of it. When people's lives are at risk of dying, one, but when you're at risk of being severely psychologically and physically addicted, that is a major event. But you know what? Rather than be a responsible society and say, narcotics abuse is out of control and we've got to pour a lot of resources and a lot of effort into fixing that, we ignore it. We ignore it, and I can tell you, the longer we ignore it, the worse it's going to get. And if you don't think for 1 second narcotics and drug abuse is not an epidemic in this country of monumental proportions, you, my friend, need mental health counseling in the worst kind of way.
Sheriff, how are the other two toddlers doing at this point?
They're doing remarkably well. They've been sent home with family. They've recovered, and the good news is, because of this man's work here and our citizens that cared, they're good to go.
Any approach with these matters involving DCF at this point? This is going to be far from over.
Obviously, these cases are always referred to DCF immediately, and they are into this investigation as well.
I hope I'm not asking you to repeat yourself. Are these her children?
I can't tell you what her relationship are to the children because the children's identity are protected by law. But she had,
With the exception of the
but she had access. Well, it goes without saying, I don't think the law contemplated me talking about a pregnant woman and then we got a baby here. I mean, you know, there you go. That's just the way that deal is.
Was the 2 and 3-year-old, were they strapped in car seats?
They were not. Car seats were available, but they were not strapped in.
So if you can run down the list of charges that she faces at this point.
Right now, we've got her charged with neglect charges, and we originally filed 2 charges. We filed the neglect charge on the infant, on the baby, this morning, so she's facing 3 felony neglect charges, and certainly she'll be facing the potential of manslaughter, murder charges should the infant die.
Can I ask one more question? We spoke to a witness who had been in the parking lot and kind of seen this woman who slumped over, and she said that she saw the kids kind of like, I mean, I know that they were crying, you would talk about how they were crying, but they were also like slapping her face, like as if they knew. So it's surprising to me, I guess, that a child of that age can grasp that something is very, very wrong with the situation. So I don't know if you want to speak to that at all.
Yeah, sure. When I did approach the passenger window, when I started knocking on the window trying to get her attention, trying to arouse her, the kids were smacking her in the face to try to wake her up. Obviously, that was unsuccessful due to the narcotics in her system.
Okay, any other questions?